Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. If you clicked on this video, chances are you're interested in the upcoming release of Last Epoch. But before you jump into the game, there's a lot of systems that you should know about. So, let's hop right in. When you first log into Last Epoch, you're met with this login screen, where you can choose to play either offline or online. For this video, we're going to choose online. Once you log in, you're greeted with this screen, where you can choose any of your existing characters, like this Beastmaster or the Sorcerer here, and enter the game. Or you can create a new online character, or you can switch to offline and create an offline character. So let's create our new online character. Now for your first major decision. What class are you going? There are 5 base classes, each with their own masteries. First up is the Sentinel, who is going to be your tanky melee character. His first mastery of Void Knight is all about the high damage Void abilities. Next up is Forge Guard, who gets his own walking suit of armor to attack his foes. Finally, the Paladin, who is all about smiting evil, baby. Next up is the Rogue, who is your high damage, high mobility class. Blade Dancer is your melee high damage, and Marksman is your high damage bow build. Falconeer is the third class, which will be added on launch. In the middle is the Mage, who is a super high damage dealer. That is all about that spell slinging lifestyle. Its masteries are Sorcerer, which is all about elemental spells like casting meteors, Spellblade, which is your melee wizard build for all the fans of blade singers out there. Finally is Runemaster, which is a combo-based spellcaster who generates runes whenever he casts spells, and then those runes can cast their own spells, which can either buff the caster or deal damage. Fourth is the Primalist, which is your nature-loving badass. His first mastery is Beastmaster, which is all about using your beasts to kill your enemies while you sit back and enjoy the show. Next up is Shaman, which is the spell-casting totem-throwing mastery. Finally, the Druid, where you can be a powerful bear, a spell-casting Spriggan, or a fast ninja bug called a Bladestorm. Last but not least is the Acolyte, who's the undead, necromantic version of the Mage. Their first subclass is Necromancer, which is all about summoning undead hordes of skeletons, wraith, and even bone golems. Next up is the Lich, where you actually become the Lich, and you siphon the souls of your enemies to increase your own power. Finally, their third mastery is the Warlock, which will be added on launch on the 21st. For this video, we're going to go ahead and create an Acolyte. Once you've decided on a class, all you have to do is give your character a name and hit the continue button, where you'll have to choose the game mode and the challenges for your character. You can choose between standard and hardcore. Do keep in mind, if you make your character hardcore and they die, they just revert back to a standard character. For the challenges, currently all you can choose is character found, which makes it so you cannot play or trade with any other characters. And on launch, they'll add the Masochist. So, let's get started. Now that we're in the game, the first thing you'll need to know is that all of your skills are located at the bottom, and you move by pressing or holding left click. The game also has helpful tutorials that teach you how to play as you go. There's also an extensive guide in the game that you can get to at any time by pressing G. This guide basically has everything you'll ever need to know in the game, well documented. As you can see, the game will continue to pop up useful tooltips at the bottom. As you saw, we can pull up the social menu by pressing H and see if any friends are online and invite them to our party. One of the more important things in the game is health potions. You can see how many you have in the bottom left corner, and what button you need to press to use them. As you progress through the game, you'll notice that quests show up as golden question marks on your minimap and in the overworld. There we go, our first new skill, which got added to the bar automatically. Now we can summon a skeleton horde. As you play through the game, items will drop on the ground with different tags. The colors are white, blue, yellow, purple, orange, and green, which are normal, magic, rare, exalted, unique, and set, respectively. Now that we have our first passive skill, let's take a look at the passive skill tree. You gain passive points by leveling up and by completing some story missions. As you can see here, the 3 skills on the left are blinking, which means I am allowed to allocate a point to any of those 3 skills. Some skills are connected via a line, which means that I have to take the skill on the left to take any points in the skill on the right. The dot in the middle indicates how many skill points I need to put into the skill on the left to unlock the skill on the right. I have to spend 4 points into Dark Ritual to get Soul Aegis, but I also only need to spend 1 point into Dark Ritual to get Ethereal Revenants. For this build, we're going to take the minion damage. Now that we're a little further along, we can take a look at the skill system. As you level up, you will unlock the ability to specialize into different skills. In Last Epoch, every single skill has its own unique, complex skill tree that drastically alters the way the skill works. Because we're going to minion build, we're going to go ahead and specialize into summon skeletons. And there's 2 ways to do that. You can either click on the skill, and then click on the specialize button in the top right corner. Or you can click on the hexagon at the top, and then click on the skill you want to specialize into. As you can see here, there are several different skills that we can go into that would radically change the way summon skeletons would work. From radically increasing damage in area, to adding a new type of skeleton, like rogues to spawn, to reducing their cooldown but increasing rogue damage, to making the rogues throw acid flax, and getting rid of warriors and spawning only archers, or maybe rogues if you took rogues. Or we increase our maximum number of skeletons, or we could increase their damage and size but reduce the number of skeletons that we are allowed to have. Or we can remove archers and have nothing but melee warriors. You can really customize every skill to fit your playstyle. Now that we're in a new city, there are several new mechanics that you need to learn. First is waypoints. Waypoints light up when you first come near them, which permanently unlocks them on the map. You can travel to any map that has a waypoint. Maps with waypoints are marked by the little star in the circle. Once you unlock the waypoint, you can then travel to it at any time, including through the different eras. Next is the skill respecializer.
Hello, traveler.
If you ever make a mistake, or you want to change your build, you can come to the respecializer, and for a small gold fee, remove points from your passive tree, allowing you to reallocate them in whatever new skills you want to put them into. You can respec any skill in any of your passive trees, including any of your mastery trees. The gold cost gets more expensive the more skill points you have allocated into that passive tree. Next up is the stash. In the stash, you can create categories and stash tabs to organize your stash to your heart's content. And you can have as many stash tabs as you want, and as many categories. Stash tabs only cost in-game gold, and they are not microtransactions. When you make a category, you can customize the name, the icon, and the color of the category. And you can do the same with stash tabs. Finally, the shopkeeper. With the shopkeeper, you can buy and sell items. Occasionally, they will also have these runes of shattering, which you'll probably want to pick up, because they are incredibly important to the crafting system. Sometimes, early game, you'll find upgrades like these gloves. The last beginner tip that you'll need to know is how to use your map. So, by pressing the M key, you open up the map. And as you can see, we have quests in gold and quests in blue. The gold quests are going to be your main storyline quests, while the blue quests are going to be your side missions. On the left-hand side, you can switch between which quest you are actively tracking. And on the right-hand side, you can see the objectives for that quest and how many you've completed and what you need to do next. You can also see the rewards for completing the quest, like experience, gold, passive points, and eventually idols. In the bottom left-hand corner, you can see how many passive point rewards you can still get from completing quests and side quests, and how many idle slot rewards you can still receive. You can also travel between any waypoints that you've unlocked, and you can travel even between the different ages as you progress through the story. Once you progress through the story a bit more, you'll end up at the end of time. By going up this pathway, you'll be able to meet an old man who will give you your mastery class. The first time you talk to Elder Grail, you'll be able to select your mastery. Do be warned, this decision is final, and you cannot change your mastery later in the game unless you make a new character. As you can see on my Sentinel, I went into Void Knight as my mastery, indicated by this line connecting the passive tree to the master tree. In Void Knight, I am able to go all the way to the end of the passive skill tree, collecting any of these passive skills as I go. And as I spend different amount of points, I unlock new permanent skills that I can put on my skill bar, all the way up to Anomaly after I spend 30 points in my Void Knight skill tree. Even though I've locked in as a Void Knight, I can still get points in both Paladin and Forge Guard, but only to the halfway point. And as such, I cannot unlock Judgment because it would require me to spend more points than I'm allowed to put into Paladin. Something that you'll be introduced early on in the game, but won't come in handy until mid or late game, is crafting, which you can do at these anvil locations on your map, or at any time, anywhere, by pressing the F key. To craft an item, you simply drop it into this box over here, and you can now craft and adjust your item. As you can see at the top, every item has a forging potential, which is how many times you can craft on it. But it is not a linear number. This does not have 26 crafts. Rather, if I was to upgrade it, it could take anywhere between 1 to 10 forging potential away from this item. So there's a chance that I only get to upgrade 3 things on this item. But before we upgrade anything, let's talk about glyphs, as they're incredibly important to augmenting how you craft. The first glyph is going to be a glyph of hope, which makes it so there is a 25% chance you use 0 forging potential when crafting. Let's upgrade this strength. And we succeeded, and we got a crit. Crits are really nice because they can upgrade the same tier a second time for free, or they can upgrade a different affix for free. And we didn't use any forging potential, so we're still at 26. Next up is the Glyph of Chaos, which will randomly re-roll an affix to a different affix, while upgrading it in the process. So this void resistance, let's say we don't want it on this ring. We will upgrade and re-roll it into lightning resistance. Next up is the Glyph of Order, which keeps a stat in the same place while increasing it. What that means is, as you can see here, our lightning resist rolled a 19%. If we were to upgrade this to tier 4, it would adjust the lightning resist to the same number but in tier 4. So if tier 4's range is 20 to 25, it will keep it at 24% lightning resist. This is best used when you've maxed out a stat that you care about and you want to keep it that high roll as you upgrade it. Finally, the Glyph of Despair, which is used to knock a stat off of an item by locking it in place permanently so that it frees up the slot so you can use it to upgrade something else. Let's try that real quick. Let's put Void Resistance back on this piece of gear by adding it to the empty affix slot. And then we will switch to a Glyph of Despair, and we will upgrade the affix with a Glyph of Despair, which has sealed Void Resistance permanently onto this ring. And it can no longer be modified, but it opened up this slot so we can put something else there now. Let's go with Physical Resistance. And as you can see, I unfortunately got an unlucky roll, and I am now out of forging potential. So let's move a different ring into place. So we can talk about runes. Runes are also incredibly important for crafting. There's several different runes that you can use. The first being a Rune of Shattering, which will destroy the item and give you some of the affix shards that make up the item. If we were to destroy this item, we could get up to 3 Void Damage Shards, 1 Attunement Shard, 2 Lightning Resist Shards, and 5 Cold Resist Shards, but it's not guaranteed to get all of them. The next rune is a Rune of Refinement, which rerolls all of these affix shards' roll range within their range. Let's say we look at this item and everything is rolled middle of the line. We could use a Rune of Refinement to re-roll all of those, hoping to get them to all roll top of the line. A Rune of Removal will permanently remove a random affix from the item. A Rune of Discovery will add affixes to the item randomly. Could be used early game to make a gray item into a yellow item. A Rune of Shaping rerolls all of the implicit stats, which are found below the title of the item and above the forging potential. Again, within the range. So this one has a dodge rating of 16, and it could roll up to 25 or down to 10. We could use this Rune of Shaping to re-roll it within that range, hoping to get 25. Next up is a Rune of Ascendance, which will transform your item into a unique or set item, which is good for trying to farm a specific item for your build. Next up is a Rune of Creation, which will create a duplicate of the item, but it will lower both items' forging potential to 0. Next up is a Rune of Research, which is used to pull an experimental affix off of an item, similar to the Glyph of Despair. However, it only works on experimental stats. So let's go ahead and grab an experimental item, which are these half yellow, half blue items. And let's put that in. And pull the experimental frenzy effect off of the item. There you go. It is now sealed onto the item permanently, and we freed up that affix slot to put a new affix in its place. And finally, this main slot here allows you to add the runes that you want to add, or you can search for any prefix or suffix and add it to your item. We need a prefix. Let's go for movement speed on these boots. And there you go. And now we can just quickly make sure that our Glyph of Hope is in and add that affix to the item. And we got 7% increased movement speed, which is a top of the line roll. So let's go ahead and use a Glyph of Order when we upgrade it, and it guarantees that it will upgrade to 9%, which again is at the top of its roll chance. As soon as you reach the end of time, you can go ahead and start doing the endgame activity of Monoliths. However, it is highly recommended to get your passive point rewards and idle slot rewards from the campaign before you try jumping in to Monoliths. Monoliths are a huge endgame activity similar to mapping from Path of Exile. You'll start at this first island, Fall of the Outcast, go through its monolith, and you'll get to choose between either going to the level 62 zone or the level 66 zone, and you'll continue through all of these monoliths, eventually reaching the 3 level 90 zones. When you first enter the Monolith of Fate, you'll be greeted with a small island with a waypoint, and then a pyramid-shaped object that floats into the air, revealing a diamond. When clicking on this diamond, you'll be presented with a screen that looks similar to this view right here, where you can choose between one of 2 or maybe 3 different islands, each with their own symbol on it. This symbol shows you what you'll get if you complete the Echo. In the bottom right corner, you can also see that I will get runes for completing this, 10 timeline stability, and I can gain up to 22 bonus timeline stability. I will also gain the player modifiers of 18% increased item rarity and 5% increased experience gain. However, enemies will gain Frenzy and Haste. These modifiers will only last for this Echo. However, if we make it further down the tree, let's say somewhere over here, where our reward is a sword, you can see that for the next 5 Echoes, enemies will have 34% increased health. But for the next 5 Echoes, I will also get a 9% increased item rarity and a 12% increased experience gain. You can also see, as you go further down the Echo tree, that you'll get increased timeline stability and bonus stability. At this point, you're probably wondering what timeline stability is. Timeline stability is this bar at the top, and as you can see, there's several different lock symbols throughout the bar. As you reach these different lock symbols, a quest will unlock on your left-hand side. You can go and do that quest to get some bonus XP and gold, and unlock the next quest in the line as soon as you reach that stability marker. Once you've completed the 3rd quest, which is a boss fight, you'll get a blessing for the Monolith, which you can see in your character's screen, and they are a permanent buff to your character. Every Monolith works the same way, with you building your way through this Echo tree, choosing the paths that give you the rewards you care about most, until you fill up your stability bar and complete your 3 quests, gaining your blessing. You'll unlock the next Monolith that you can go and do a similar system in, working your way through the tree, gaining stability, and then completing your quests to get your blessing. Once you defeat all 3 level 90 Monoliths, you'll unlock this island in the middle, which has a device. Once you go to that device and click on it, it will unlock empowered Monoliths for every single island, and in those empowered Monoliths, all islands are bumped to level 100. You can choose to go into a legendary version by clicking on the right-hand legendary option that only appears after you've done the 3 level 90 zones and clicked on that device. When doing empowered Monoliths, all enemies gain a permanent 50% health and damage buff, but you also gain a permanent 50% item rarity and experience gain. Also, the rewards from your different Echoes are more likely to roll higher and more likely to roll better tiers as the primary reward, including more exalted items. As you can see, we still have the stability bar at the top and quests that we can do that are important for upping the power and thus our item rarity and experience even further. This isn't the only way to increase the difficulty and the rewards of your Monoliths. As you work your way through the Echo Tree, when you get to the edges of the map, you'll start unlocking these special locations that, as you can see, resets your entire web but adds corruption and timeline stability. And you can see that each one adds different amounts. And the same is true in Empowered Rifts. You can also reset the Echo Tree and increase the corruption, thus increasing the difficulty, but also your rewards. Monoliths are not the only endgame activity. There is 3 dungeons, all with their own unique mechanics, as well as their own unique rewards, as well as an arena that you can work on and try and climb the leaderboards. You can see where any of these dungeons are by right-clicking on their key and it will take you directly to it on the map. Dungeons are marked by this dungeon door, while the arena has its own unique symbol. I don't want to spoil the dungeon mechanics, because they truly are that special, but I'll at least show you how to open up a dungeon. So let's right-click on our Lightless Arbor and travel there now. Once you're at your dungeon location, you'll be met with a guide who will teach you some lore about the dungeon, as well as your stash in case you need any gear. To actually enter any of the dungeons, there'll be a large door that you'll need to click on and deposit the appropriate key. Once you do so, you'll be allowed to choose a tier of difficulty for the dungeon, which, as you can see, changes the rewards from it as well as enemy buffs. So if we do a tier 3, we'll get increased exalted helmet drops, but the enemies will have 50% damage and health. And then, all you have to do is enter the dungeon. But as I said, I don't want to spoil the dungeons for you, because they truly are unique mechanics. Similar to dungeons, to access the arena, you'll need to click on this large portal, and input your key, where you'll be allowed to select a tier of difficulty, where you'll have to fight through 40 waves of monsters that get different buffs depending on your difficulty, while you get a different bonus. Once you defeat the 40 waves, you'll fight an arena champion to seal your victory. The other option in the arena is to do Endless Arena, where you get to fight through endless waves of enemies to earn your spot on the leaderboards. For the first 80 waves, the arena will scale from whatever your current level is to level 100 mobs, and then it will go beyond that. At any time, you can access the leaderboards by pressing the L key, where you can filter by the different number of players, the different classes, softcore or hardcore, and see where you stand on the leaderboard and where others stand on the leaderboard. One of the most important systems to learn in Last Epoch is the loot filter, which you can reach by going into your settings, scrolling about halfway down in gameplay, and clicking on Manage Loot Filters, or by pressing Shift F at any time. When you first do so, you'll be granted with this screen, which gives you a basics on how to do a loot filter. You can also choose to just import someone else's filter, or you can try and create your own filter. Let's go ahead and create a new filter. Once you create a new filter, you can change the name, give it an emblem, and a color scheme. You can have up to 75 rules in your loot filter. There's several parts of the loot filter that are incredibly important to know. First, as it says here, rules that are higher up take priority over rules that are lower down. A good rule of thumb is that your very first rule should always be to hide, which hides literally every item in the game. Another good rule is that your last rule should be to show all items with a rarity of unique and set. And keep this one at the top, and put all the rest of your rules in between these two. This ensures that you'll always be allowed to see any unique and set items that drop, which is helpful if you plan on making more than one character and need their uniques and sets before you start playing on that character. When making a rule, there are several things to keep in mind. The first is the item's visibility. You can choose to show it, which is the default show option in the game, or you can recolor items to any of these colors, whichever makes more sense for you. You can also choose to capitalize item labels, and you can make sure that this rule only applies when your character is in a certain level range. The main aspect of making a rule is adding conditions. As you can see, there are several different conditions to choose between. First, let's look at item type. Item type lets you choose the type of item that you want to make a rule for. In this case, let's do a one-handed axe, because that's what my build uses. So this rule will only apply to one-handed axes. You can even go in and decide what subtype of axes you want this to apply to. In this case, we're not going to do that, because I care about all the axes. Next up, let's take a look at rarity. This allows you to change what rarity of item this rule will apply to. I'm in the endgame, so I only care about exalteds, uniques, and set items. We can also decide that we care about the level of the item, and we can decide if we care about it being below the level, above, max level but below character level, or highest usable level. The next condition is class requirement, which lets you say that, hey, we're a primalist. We only care about gear that is specific to the primalist. Do keep in mind, this will lock out some items that could be useful for you because they don't specify that they're specific for your class. Finally, the last condition, which is the most important condition, is affixes. Affixes are all of the stats that an item can roll with, and as you can see here, there's a long list of item stats to choose from. Once you have the affixes selected, you can now choose how many of them you want to see on an item. We'll choose one, and we'll say, let's recolor this to white. So now we have a rule, and let's remember to place it in the middle, that says if we get an axe that has any of the 17 affixes we care about, we're going to change it to the color white. Now that we have this rule in place, let's go ahead and duplicate it. On the one that is above the one we just made, we're going to change the number of affixes on this item to 2, and we're going to change the color to blue. So now, if a one-handed axe rolls with at least 2 of the 17 affixes I've selected, it will change the color to blue. We'll go ahead and duplicate this rule, change this to 3, change the color to yellow, and now if an item rolls with 3 of the 17 affixes that we care about, we'll see it in yellow. And let's do this one more time. Change this to 4, change this to pink, and now we know that if a pink item drops, it's a perfect roll for us, with all 4 affixes being important to our build. Do keep in mind, the rules with the higher affixes, you want to keep higher up so that it changes the rules because they override the one before. If we were to put this white one at the top, the rules would say it would hide all items, then it would show items with 2 of the 17 affixes in blue, then 3 of the 17 in yellow, then 4 of the 17 in pink, but then it would get to this rule and recolor all of them to white because it is at the top, because they have at least one affix of the right type. So let's make sure to keep this at the bottom, but above hide all items. Now, just rinse and repeat for every piece of gear. Once you're done with all the rest of your gear, the last step is to add some idols in there. Idols are done very similar to any other item in the game by selecting the item type and the affixes you care about. However, the affixes are not grabbed from any of these primary affixes that you grabbed for all of your items. Instead, there's a special idol slot down here at the bottom where you choose which affixes you care about on your idols. There is a general tab as well as a tab for each class. Highly recommend doing an idols that have at least one affix you care about and an idols that has both affixes that you care about, because idols can only ever roll with 2 affixes. Alright, that just about does it. Everything you need to know before you jump into Last Epoch on the 21st. If you enjoyed what you saw or found any of this information useful, please leave a like. If you have any comments, please do so below. And don't forget to subscribe. Thank you for watching.